This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss, co-host of PBS's Motor Week. He'll take your calls and comments now at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. Or email him at radio@goss-garage.com. And now, Pat Goss.
Well, hello everybody and welcome to Goss's Garage. Hey, if you'd like to talk about cars, get on the line. Give us a call, 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-4677. Now, we have a very special guest this afternoon. We have Mr. John Davis from Motor Week. John?
And how are you, Pat Goss?
I'm doing great. And yourself?
Not too bad, and delighted to be here.
Good. All right. Now, you've been out gallivanting around like you always do. And just back from the New York Auto Show.
Yeah, we should. I'm glad you clarified that just a little bit. Yeah, this is the last big auto show of the season, and it's I guess it's in its second public day today. But the press days were earlier this week, and as usual for New York, they had a lot of surprises. I would say the New York show, as far as new models near term, is ranking very close to Detroit now. If anybody's been watching the newspapers this week, they probably saw the hubbub about the new Lincoln Continental, a concept that Lincoln had kept very, very secret. There were some rumors about maybe a town car returning, but here rolls out this very flashy Bentley-esque four-door that they're going to start making next year, and kind of took some of the thunder away from Cadillac, who did the first public appearance of their big CT6 sedan, and of course the Germans too, who Mercedes had showed up with a lot of new stuff. But a very good show, a car show, Pat. A show actually where most of the new models were cars and not SUVs.
Hey, how about that?
It was cool.
Let me ask you about the Lincoln. Is the platform front-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive based?
It's going to be, they don't have a rear drive platform except for the trucks. The word is, and it's all speculative, it's not going to be built on the same chassis as the Taurus and MKZ, which is an all-wheel drive chassis, but it will take over a lengthened version of the MKS chassis. So it will be all-wheel drive, probably standard, that's the word, because the role of this car is not so much for the U.S., but actually for China.
Yeah, they love the big cars over there.
They want a stretched back door. It would be a limousine, a chauffeur-driven vehicle. The doors look like something off of a Maybach. They're so huge. So, yes, it's all-wheel drive standard, probably a twin-turbo six-cylinder, but they really didn't get into much besides just, hey, look, and it's coming in a year.
How much longer do you think we're going to have a significant number of V8s?
I don't think they're dead. I think you're going to see small displacement twin-turbo V8s. They'll be, right now, the upper limit for most passenger car V6 is, somewhere between 3.6 and 4. And maybe you're going to see a 4.5-liter twin-turbo V8. The Germans are already basically there. And I think eventually the new Cadillac is a twin-turbo 6. But I think a twin-turbo small displacement V8 is in line. I think one of the big surprises in the last 3 months was the new Cummins turbo diesel V8 that they're going to put in the Nissan Titan. Everybody sort of expected some form of a 6, but they're going to use their small 8.
So technically what we're looking at is smaller displacement V8s and
twin turbos,
bigger displacement V6s.
Bigger displacement V6s, but even there, if you look at the trend, no one has really brought out a new 3.5 to 3.6 liter in the last 5 years. It's been 3, 2.7. That 2.7 that Ford put in the F-150, the new F-150, that's going to get wide use in passenger cars, and I think we'll see more of that. So everything's going down. 2-liter four-cylinders are going to be rare. It's going to be 1.4, 1.5 with a turbo.
Yeah, well, the one thing that isn't going down is performance.
Oh, no, performance is going up.
It's amazing.
performance is going up. As you all know, the turbos are much more reliable now because of water cooling. And then if you are worried about it, what are they going to do? They're going to put an auxiliary electric motor on it. That's what all of the European exotics are doing. It's going to start flowing into mainstream vehicles. All-wheel drive will actually mean an electric motor in the back and no more, drivetrain of any type. So there is a huge revolution going on in powertrains right now that's probably bigger than anything I've seen in my lifetime.
All right. Hey, folks, we need to take a break. If you'd like to call, the number's 844-885-4677. After the break, we're going to talk to Jim up in Pennsylvania. We're going to talk about engine analyzers, electrical analyzers, that is, coming up right here on Goss's Garage.
This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss. Call the show now at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. And now, Pat Goss.
All right, we're talking about automobiles. I'm Pat Goss.
And I'm John Davis from Motor Week.
All right, John, let's go up to Pennsylvania and talk to Jim. Jim, welcome to Goss's Garage.
Well, thank you so much, Pat. I'm glad to see that John Davis is with you because I saw your segment on Motor Week recently, and you were doing a little segment on battery chargers and
yes.
charging system testers, and there was a couple small handheld units there, and the only one I saw that I could see on the TV was a Snap-on unit. But I was wondering if you had a recommendation on a nice little tester that we could use for home use.
Well, you call the right guy.
Yeah, tester for testing batteries or just general electrical testing?
Well, the segment was on battery testing, starting system testing, and alternator testing. I think it was all in one unit.
All right. I don't know of a single thing out there that would be affordable for a do-it-yourselfer that would actually give you any meaningful results.
All right, so
probably your best bet is a moderately decent digital volt ohm meter, DVOM, and you can buy them from every hardware store or parts supplier on the planet just about. And then you learn the procedures, which are a little involved to go into here, but you learn the procedures, and you can do most of what our $10,000 electrical system tester, and that one that you saw on Motor Week, that's a $4,000 unit.
It just looks small, that's all.
Right. But you can do most of that. The big difference is that the commercial units, they do it faster, number one, and number two, they build in a lot of idiot proofing.
Yeah, it has a logic, a program,
right?
So you don't have to learn everything.
Exactly.
Right.
Sweet.
Okay.
The other question had to do. Well, I just wanted to ask you about doing a parasitic drain test on the battery. I have a clamp meter. Are they useful? Just to put around the either the positive or the negative and take a reading.
Usually not, unless it is a high-end one that can read very low voltages or amperages. We're looking at something in the neighborhood of 50 milliamps that we need to be able to read, and most of them can't even come close to that.
What do you think? You have a light bulb or something that's stuck on somewhere in the car, or something draining the battery?
I did it one time, but I've resolved that, and I thought, well, I have a clamp meter. It'd be very easy just to clamp it on. I also have a DVOM, and if I use the voltmeter, on amps.
Remove it. You have to series it. You remove the negative battery cable and series it between the post and the cable.
Yeah, I just does it make a difference if it's negative or positive cable?
They recommend doing the negative, and I've never heard a good reason why, but I have never, ever seen anybody recommend removing the positive.
Well, thanks so much for your help, Pat.
Thanks for the comments, Jim.
All right, Gary from Columbia, welcome to Goss's Garage.
Hi, Pat. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
A question. A friend of mine just bought a 2006 Acura RL, and it has the technology package, which means it also has run-flat tires.
Right.
I know they're awfully expensive to
Yes.
replace. When you get to the point of needing to replace them, can you replace them with conventional tires?
Well, the car's going to ride different. It's going to handle different. You have to figure out some place to put a spare and all of that stuff, or you have to buy an emergency repair kit and all the stuff that goes with it. So, yes, you can put conventional tires on, but may not, at the end of the day, may not be worth it.
You better make sure that you've got compatible rims because a lot of run flats, even though the rims look normal, they may not take a standard tire. And the only reason I even know that at all is I was just talking to some folks at Bridgestone who actually are now making a run flat tire for people that didn't have a car that didn't come with run flats. And they said there's still some quirks in some of the rims, even if it looks like a normal rim.
And the other thing is that being a Honda has for many years on their run flats used the Michelin.
That Michelin system, which is totally
PAX
incompatible.
system,
Yeah.
and it is an absolute nightmare all the way around.
Yeah, you're probably going to have to buy yourself go to Tire Rack or somebody like that and take a look at getting tires mounted on wheels sent to you. You might save yourself a lot of grief.
You mean non-run flat tires mounted on wheels
Right.
from
Yeah, if
Tire
you're gonna
Rack.
change and go to non-run flats, if you've got if you've got a pack system, you've got to get different rims anyway.
Okay. Now, what is a PAX? I'm not familiar with that
It's a special run flat made by Michelin. It has a big plastic
Tire within a
piece
tire.
inside the tire. Requires a special machine to change it. It's just utter nonsense and a nightmare like you would never imagine.
You can drill a hole in it the size of a baseball, and you can still drive on it, but that's about the best you can say for it.
Now, what kind of duration do you get on the Michelin run flat tires? I mean, how many miles typically?
It depends on how you drive them.
I know people have gotten 40,000, 50,000 miles out of them.
Okay. All right. Well, one other question. Now, what is your opinion of the Acura RL, like the 2006? Is that a good car?
We loved it when it was. We loved it when it was new. I'll let Pat talk about repair.
We don't see any problems with them.
Yeah.
Nice cars.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your advice.
Thanks for calling in.
All right, if you want to talk about automobiles, you want to talk to John Davis or myself, 844-885-4677. We're going to take a break. We're going to talk to Al from Waldorf when we come back right here on Goss's Garage.
This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss. Call the show now at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. And now, Pat Goss.
All right, we're talking cars. I'm Pat Goss.
And I'm John Davis.
And remember, you can email us at radio@goss-garage.com. Al from Waldorf, welcome to Goss's Garage.
Hi, Pat. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Got a strange problem, and I need the guru here. Got a 99 Nissan Sentra, and there's an incredible amount of ignition noise coming through the AM part of the radio. And the strange thing about it is it depends on the attitude of the vehicle. In other words, if you're driving down a road straight and level, the noise is unbearable. Jerk the wheel to the right or the left, the car tilts a little bit, noise goes away. As soon as it levels off, the noise is back. I thought I was nuts, so I did an experiment. Put the car in the driveway, engine running, get out of the car, grab the roof, rock the car up and down, and sure enough, the noise disappears when it's at the extremes of that travel, comes back when it's level. So I don't know what the heck is going on, but it's ignition noise, and it clearly correlates with the attitude of the vehicle.
Okay.
And
so what you want to start looking for are wire harnesses under the hood first, because it's easiest to do. And then under the dash that swing back and forth as the attitude of the car changes.
Okay.
Now, maybe what you can do is you can do the old-fashioned wiggle test and start wiggling wires back and forth and so on, and see if you find one where the noise comes and goes, and that way you can isolate the source.
Do you think you'd start under the dash or under the hood? Or
I'd start under the hood because it's a whole lot easier than
crawling up under the dash.
All right, boy, that's for sure. I have wiggled some wires under the hood. Didn't seem to make any difference, and everything seems to be pretty secure in there. But I guess I can jack it around some more.
Well, the other thing, of course, is to wiggle the antenna around.
Yeah, that I've done. You know, the funny thing is, I had an '87 Nissan Sentra, did exactly the same thing. And so, you're right. It seems to be something maybe in the design of the way they run wire harnesses.
No, this sounds like it's you.
Oh,
we're waiting for him to laugh.
Oh, my.
This is a black cloud that's following you around.
Yeah. Well, this vehicle, when I first got it, it didn't seem to do it, and then over time, it started happening. And so I maybe I need to drive tilted. Maybe.
Yeah, that'll do it. So.
Maybe I need to put a gas shock on one side of the car and drive tilted.
Yeah. The other thing, of course, if all else fails, if you can't isolate it, you can go to an electronics supply store and you can buy a filter for the antenna lead-in.
You think that might get it out?
Typically it does, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess spend an afternoon shaking things around under the hood and see what happens.
Yeah, well, don't forget under the dash because that's where you're probably going to find it. I mentioned under the hood first because it's easy, but most of those things we find under the dash.
Because if you look up under there, if there's one place you've got unsecured wire harnesses, it's under the dash. And the other, and I'd also look at, places that are accessible, like even under the seats. You'd be surprised how many wires are under there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, Murphy's Law would argue that it's going to be in the most difficult place to get to.
And don't forget that you need to move the wires around for the fuel pump back at the gas tank.
Oh, okay.
Because a lot of this noise that we hear in radios comes from fuel pumps.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And that will correlate with engine speed, because this thing definitely correlates with engine speed, no doubt about it.
No. Fuel pump speed is constant.
Yeah, that's right. It's electric fuel pump. No, this is definitely engine speed. Throw the clutch in, and the frequency of the noise goes down. The amplitude's the same, but the frequency goes down.
Have you tried? Have you tried? And this is a trick I used to use when I had this problem. Have you tried actually moving the radio, taking the radio out, and moving it away from the firewall, bringing it towards you?
No, I haven't. I have banged on the dash a little bit. Not a particularly test that I'm proud of. Just to see if fiddling with the radio itself might do anything, but I have not gone underneath to try to move the radio.
Well, the other thing, of course, you can try to isolate the source of the noise, and you can do that by taking a piece of aluminum foil and holding it over the various electronics parts and so on.
Oh gosh, that all this stuff brings back memories like 40 years ago when I used to crawl around my old Mustang trying to get all the AM radio noise out.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thanks a lot, Pat. I've got some hunting to do, but thanks for that. That's some good information. Thank you very much.
And you didn't tell him about the copper screen that you would put underneath the hood and ground it.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, I used to do that.
Nothing ever worked.
For the police department.
Yeah, I tried running a ground wire directly from the negative terminal onto the block to see if there might have been a bad ground somewhere. That didn't change anything.
Yeah. Right.
So I'll keep looking.
Good luck.
Okay.
All right. Oh, by the way, if you want to find some place to get BG products or services, go online to bgfindashop.com. bgfindashop.com. We're going to take a break. More with John Davis and your calls coming up here on Goss's Garage.
This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss. Call the show now, 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. And now, Pat Goss.
We are talking about automobiles. I'm Pat Goss.
And I'm John Davis. And Pat, we've got an email from La Plata. How long have I been in Maryland? From Lou in La Plata, who's got a 2010 Prius. He's got a rather unusual problem. He says when he cranks it up, he gets like a hard knocking sound for about 5 seconds. Then he also gets a check hybrid light. And then dealer, of course, is throwing up their hands.
Well, the first thing, because it's a hybrid, everybody wants to make it exotic. Well, it really isn't. When we have a problem like this, that it knocks when it's first started, that means you got an engine problem, pure and simple. It is an engine.
That is a gasoline engine that's in there. That's the basis of a Prius.
Right. So the first thing to do is to, number one, check the oil filter on it. Make sure that it has a good, high-quality oil filter and not some cheap junk that allows the oil to drain out of the filter.
And I've had some recent experience with that. If you've got anything on that is not a Toyota filter, even if it's a name brand, you better change it because that could still be the problem.
Exactly. So you want to get the oil filter out of the way first because there's a check valve in there that keeps the oil from draining out of the filter. And if that check valve doesn't work properly, the oil drains out and then the engine starts with an empty oil filter and it knocks until the oil filter is refilled.
Yeah, I had a situation with my 2002 Mini Cooper. I had the oil changed and I was getting a low oil pressure and took it right back in. And even though it was a name brand filter, they had made a change in that filter, like after the first couple of thousand vehicles, and I had the wrong filter on it.
Absolutely. We see it all the time. Now, we also had an email about a Mazda pickup truck with, I think, a B3000.
Right.
And I'm not sure that I understand all of what was being said, is to understand the question, but no heat and a bunch of things like that. Yet the heater control valve is open and those sorts of things. And compression tests, they did all this different stuff, water pump and radiator and things like that. Well, one of the first things I do on that vehicle is I would perform a head gasket test. And no, a head gasket test is not a pressure test. That's would only be for extreme cases. And so what do? Well, you get the engine warmed up, get it up to normal operating temperature. You hold it at 2,000 to 2,500 RPM, and using either a head gasket tester or using a exhaust gas analyzer over the neck of the radiator, you sniff for hydrocarbons coming out of the radiator, because I'll bet you that this car has a bad head gasket. Now, why does that cut down on the heat? You can't get heat inside the car, and it may cause the car to stall and all these different things. Well, it's real simple. Sensors don't sense air. And with a bad head gasket, you don't necessarily lose coolant, but what you do get is you get exhaust gas, high-pressure exhaust gas into the cooling system, which displaces some of the coolant, and that leads to no heat because the heater core gets airlocked and all these different things.
Pat, I've got one from John in Nokesville who's got a problem with an airbag light coming on and wonders if it could be the clock spring.
Yes, absolutely it could. When you're dealing with airbags, you have to have the airbag hardwired.
Mm-hmm.
So what they do is they put in a unit that's called a clock spring underneath the steering wheel, and that has a coil of wire in it.
So you can turn the wheel.
Right. You can turn the wheel, and it winds it up in one direction and unwinds it in the other. Yet, with all this movement, you can have the airbag hardwired. Well, over years of use, or sometimes just a defect, those clock springs go bad, and when they do, you get an airbag warning light in most cases, or you may wind up with things like cruise control that doesn't work and stuff like that.
They actually break, don't they?
Yeah, they absolutely do. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that on a lot of Chrysler Corporation cars, if that's what it happens to be, there is a lifetime recall on the clock spring. So you want to go online and check and see if it applies to some of those.
It's kind of like the modern equivalent of the old springs when they used to have with the horns right in the center of the steering wheel. Now I'm talking really old. And they would get bent or broken, and your horn would either stick on or wouldn't work at all.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
You know, another one that we have here is why so many recalls this year.
This is from T. Cornwall. Well, let me tell you, it's because all the car makers are petrified because of social media takes a recall now, and once that some of these small recalls didn't get a lot of publicity, and now they go everywhere. And after all the big judgments coming from the government, nobody wants to take a chance. And from here on out, if there's the slightest inkling of a recall that might be a safety problem, no car maker is going to wait for it to become an issue. They're nip it in the bud.
And no, it's not quality control.
Nope.
It is splitting hairs and nitpicking like you wouldn't believe, because 10 years ago, a lot of these recalls wouldn't have been recalls.
Absolutely. But when you get, say, basically a large judgment from either the government or you get a class action lawsuit filed, and all of a sudden it's up on Facebook and Twitter, it gets on the nightly news, and the amount of damage that's done, automakers are saying, look, we don't need that kind of bad publicity. Let's just go ahead, do the recall. We'd rather spend the money that way than basically waiting for someone else to come and give us a big fine.
Yep. All right, we need to take a break. Hey, folks, we have some lines available, 844-885-4677, or email us at radio@goss-garage.com. Goss's Garage will be right back.
This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss. Call the show now at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. And now, Pat Goss.
All right. As we say, we are speaking of automobiles. I'm Pat Goss.
And I'm John Davis from Motor Week. And Pat, we've got an email from Paul in Potomac. He's looking at a 2015 Subaru Outback, but he's got two questions for you. What do you think, and I think he means reliability of, electric power steering versus conventional hydraulic power steering for the boost, and also electronic or electric parking brakes? What do you think?
Well, with the electric steering, back in the day when they first came out, I guess in the 90s, we used to see the early GMs, especially the Saturns. They were always having problems.
But what type of problem was it? Was it the electric part? Or?
Yeah, it was the electric part, and they just failed, and you didn't have any assist, or the assist was too high, or just weird stuff going on. But over the last few years, and they have become commonplace. Just about everybody has electric power steering now, and they have become very reliable. Now, whether you like it or dislike it, get in the car, drive it for a distance, and see if you like it or dislike it.
On this Subaru, I can tell you that the previous model, before the 15 Subaru, had some of the deadest steering on the planet. But the 15 Outback with the electric power steering actually feels like your hands are connected to something that eventually connects to the wheel. So it is a big improvement on that particular car.
Yeah, my one of my cars has the electric steering, because you can get it with rear-wheel drive with hydraulic steering, or you get all-wheel drive
with electric
steering. And at lower speeds, I have to say, I don't like the feel of it. It's too light. But anything above 30 miles an hour, I mean, it settles in, and it is rock solid, and really pleasant to drive.
Well,
better than the hydraulic.
A lot of them are variable effort, so and speed or engine dependent. And I've never tested two systems that felt the same. Generally, we make some blanket comments that most of the BMW systems, they have an extremely complicated variable system, we don't like their system particularly because of the feel or lack thereof. We think the weight of the wheel feels okay, that it certainly makes the car perform well, but you feel fairly disconnected. So it depends on the car. It really does.
Yeah, and that's why I say take the car, serious drive. If nothing else, with any of these things, you might want to consider renting one for a weekend.
Let's talk about electronic parking brakes.
Oh, boy. They've been around for a long time now, mostly on select cars, but now they're becoming commonplace on garden variety cars. There are different theories. Some of them have electric motors built into the calipers. Others use a central electric motor with cables and different things like that. As long as you use them and use them regularly, they're pretty reliable. But if you're one of these people that never bothers with a parking brake, then there's going to come a point where you're going to be hating life, I'll tell you.
The day you want to use it on a hill or something, it ain't going to be there.
That's right. And then you're going to be faced with a big bill. So,
a lot of cars we get in, they have an electric parking brake, and they try to simulate the old handbrake by having you pull up and pull down on a little lever in the center console area. And okay, at least you're mimicking some of the old systems, but on an Outback, a 12 Outback that I own, it actually has a push-pull on the left side of the dash like the old-style ratchets. And I must say I really hate it and almost never use it.
We see them where they have, most of them are on the left side, and they have you can lift it up or you can push it in.
Yeah, that's right.
And then we see some of them where there's like a little lever type button that sticks out and push it down to set it and
all the
lift
new
up
stuff
on it.
All the new stuff has like a little flap in the center console, and it would be, up a little forward where the old handbrake would be, and you pull up or you push it down. And some of them will actually go off automatically when you shift it into drive.
Yeah, that's the majority of them that we see. They put it in drive, and not when you put it in drive, but when you depress the accelerator, that first fraction of an inch, they use the throttle position sensor to trigger the release of the parking brake.
It's probably the same system they use for hill hold and so forth.
Yeah. Very, very similar setup there. All right. Let's see. We have Jim again. Jim up in Pennsylvania. Jim, welcome back to the show. Yeah.
Well, John Davis is there, and I wanted to ask John about a mid-size SUV. Thinking about Toyota RAV4, that basic size.
Okay. We usually call that a compact, just to let you know. So you're looking for five passenger or 7 passenger? In other words, 2 rows or 3 rows? 5 is fine. Okay.
5 is fine.
In the fall, the RAV4 gets a slight facelift. Nothing I would particularly wait for, except for the fact there will be a hybrid model if that happens to interest you, which will be a big deal for Toyota. I like the CR-V. I like the Hyundai Santa Fe Sport a lot. And if you could stand something slightly smaller, the new HR-V from Honda is pretty interesting. But there's a lot out there. You've got the Ford Escape. That's also a very good one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Ford Escape had a lot of recalls there initially. I don't know
yes.
What that is.
Mm-hmm.
So,
basically,
away from that.
Well, I think that's, I wouldn't. I'd go drive one right now. They seem to be just fine. And those initial recalls were basically on one particular powertrain. So I wouldn't necessarily write that off. That was 2 years ago.
Okay. And you said the Hyundai Santa Fe?
Hyundai Santa Fe Sport. That's their 2-row. Everybody that I send out looking at things like CR-V and RAV4s seems to end up with the Hyundai Santa Fe Sport because they end up getting a lot for their money, and it's a very reliable vehicle.
Thanks so much, John.
Take care.
Thanks, Jim. All right. One of the things that a lot of people don't seem to realize, they look at Hyundai and Kia and still think of these ugly, miserable, falling apart tin boxes that they used to make.
That was 20 years ago, yeah.
Yeah. And those cars are anything but problematic or anything these days.
Well,
they're great cars.
All the independent surveys, and I'm not talking about someone who basically gets them to test, but when they actually go out and talk to 50,000 consumers like J.D. Power does, Hyundai and Kia both come back with quality ratings that are on par, if not better, than Toyota and Honda and anybody else you could speak of.
And now that they've taken this new tact on design, where their designs aren't so dopey.
Oh, their designs are great.
Oh, they're spectacular.
They have some of the best
cars.
interiors out there for the money.
Yeah.
Their nav systems are great. If you get the up-level trim and you get their UVO system for infotainment, it's excellent.
Yeah, so you don't want to write those cars off until you drive them and say, nope, this is not for me.
Yeah, and I think right now what the Japanese competitors have found is that they're having to step up their act. You notice that Honda is saying, I've got a rear view camera now with every model, because people like Hyundai and Kia have been throwing in a lot of cool features and not bumping up the price, and they're giving the traditional import brands a real run for their money.
Yeah, so we're seeing things that come into the shop when we're servicing them. We're seeing tighter lines on the dashes and so on. Quality control, fit and finish is coming up on Honda and Toyota.
Oh, yeah, I think all the way around. I mean, nothing works better than some competition. They just showed us in New York this week the next Honda Civic. Huge improvement over the current car, both in look and just the way components look like they fit together seamlessly. Not to mention the fact it's going to be a more powerful car with a little more room. So they're getting hurt. They're responding.
Okay. Well, John, I want to thank you for joining us
today. You mean
today.
It's over? Already?
Yeah, already.
All right.
Flapped our yap for a whole hour.
We
here.
did, and we answered some good questions, too.
Okay. So we will be seeing a lot more of you.
Oh, you betcha. If you don't see me, you'll be hearing me. Pat, thanks for letting me join you today.
Okay. And thank you all for listening. Thanks to Terry Cornwell and Steve McMillan for producing the show. For everyone here at Goss's Garage, I'm Pat Goss. Until next time, drive gently. See ya!